There we go. All right, so I'm here with Dark Synovia. Um, it's been a while. There's been a lot of stuff that transpired, but the main focus that we're kind of here is to mend fences and move forward. Um, Essentially, I've made mention in uh, my new intro video on my channel that that I'm trying to form a cohesive collective of channels that that incorporates not just Marxist Leninists and Maoist third worldists, but also demarchists as well as anarchists and other individuals within our community. Um, it was and essentially kind of carrying on the mantle of the former MRN, which I am more than happy to platform Jason's videos as well, and any of the former MRN people on my channel and through my channel. So yeah, and that's kind of why we're here today, because I am I'm here today with Dark Synovia, who as y'all might have realized, there was a lot of drama that played out last summer that where we essentially had uh, I wouldn't call our relationship necessarily a rift, but it was kind of one of those things where we did end up having to we were kind of forced into a situation where we had to kind of separate from each other. So
Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Yeah,
you're
yes,
good.
understand. Mute me for a second. I was trying to give a link to this stream actually,
Oh, you're fine.
so people could actually get it.
Yep, you're fine.
Anyway, yeah, it's a lot of shit has happened, and I need to get away. I had to take a step back myself because that's one of the reasons why I'm not as active because I came to the realization when this stuff happened that I needed to take a step back because the internet is a very stressful place to be in. It really is.
It can be a very toxic place too.
Yes, and it's like I don't have a Discord anymore. For those of you who don't know, I don't have a Discord anymore. I deleted it like back early when this thing happened, and not to mention I've greatly reduced my activity on YouTube. And for those of you who probably don't know, I've not been as responding as much as I used to be on my anywhere. I disabled the notifications as well. So if I want to check something, I have to manually go to a channel or a video because I just couldn't take it. I had to get off. I had to get offline. I had to limit my activity as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that essentially we all kind of get to that point where we have to move.
Continue.
Sorry.
All right, now I got you. Now, okay, continue.
Sorry, I had to decline a Skype video, but basically, I was trying to say that yeah, every once in a while we have to kind of take a step back, I think, and we have to and we just end up having to kind of work on our mental health and stuff like that. Like there's the same reason why I was pretty lackluster in responding to comments on YouTube and other social media, and why I essentially kind of just went kind of AWOL from social media, for the most part. Like there'd be like days and weeks on end where I was inactive on Discord, and and Twitter too, although Twitter was probably the one place that I still accessed a little more frequently than I'm willing to admit. But it's just, yeah, this whole thing that happened has just been stressful and has played a real toll on, but not just yours and my mental health, but really a lot of us in the community. It's played a big toll on all of our mental health. And you get to a point where you realize that your mental and emotional stability is hurt so badly that you just are like, I got to take a step back. And that's why, for a long time, my video uploading was really sporadic, and why for about a month, I wasn't uploading videos up until, well, the other day. So, yeah.
Well, I was unemployed for like over 6 months, and that caused a lot of stress for me. I'm employed now, but it was very stressful. Like when my unemployment got closer and closer to drying up.
Yeah.
It's why I wasn't active and through like January and a lot of February because of that reason. Because I've been mainly focusing on my job.
Yeah. But yeah. But basically, what I think the biggest thing is that I don't know if it's necessary or not, but I feel though like I do owe you a huge apology, because like like I think it was more just the fact that I felt like at the time I was kind of being I was in a situation where it's like I felt like it was necessary that you and I needed, and frankly there was other people involved too, and I owe them an apology as well, that were I essentially just kind of pulled back from a lot of people. And but the one person that was involved in this the whole time was Dark Synovia. And like I said, I just want to I don't know if I owe it to you or not, but I feel like I do, and I apologize for all the shit that happened, and not having the spine to essentially just stand up and be like, you know what, I'm doing my own thing, and I really don't care what other people think. But I was trying to I was essentially saying that I was essentially trying to I was trying to play both sides. I was trying to, which I know is something that we as Marxists and now as third worldists were often told not to do, because that's taking the liberal position. And so I kind of felt that, I needed to take some sort of position, but I felt like I was essentially being, that I was in a like I was in the middle, like I was the rope in a game of tug of war. And I was just kind of like, and I was just really depressed and stressed out. And it didn't really help the fact that I was also going through a very similar situation in my very close personal life with a couple other friends. And that was just a lot for me to handle at that time. And so eventually, I think the reason why I made that decision was because I was just wanting everything to stop, and and because it was taking way too much of a toll on me. But yeah, like I said, I'm really sorry that I'm really sorry that I didn't stand up for you, or stand up for myself, and stand up for anybody else that was involved in this, because it was that I really felt really shitty about it. And I thought about both of you I thought about a lot of you guys for quite some time over this. And so even when I was trying to get away from it, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I couldn't stop thinking. And wondering like, hey, are you guys okay? And was probably at some numerous times where I was probably, wanting to reach out and be just kind of like, hey, just checking in. And I didn't, because I didn't want to, I didn't want to essentially, I didn't want to get myself back involved in potentially more drama. And, so I felt really bad about all of this for months. And again, probably didn't really help my mental health.
Well, I understand why you did what you did, even though if I don't agree with it. I understand because the current situation that's going on, especially in the United States right now and the UK regarding transphobia, I understand why you did it, because like not enough people stand with trans people. So I understand why you did what you did, because you felt like that was the correct thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold that against you for doing that, because I'm cis. I will never understand personally what that experience is like. And I feel like in these kind of situations, nuance is needed. Even if I don't agree with it, I understand it.
Yeah.
Because
But
I'm not completely blameless in that situation. I could have handled it better myself. I should have, like, I was dealing with my own stuff, and I should have took a step back sooner, and my mental health was getting to a tipping point by that point. And I didn't recognize that until I suffered the backlash of that video I did.
yeah. And honestly, looking back, I kind of wish that I had just done what a lot of people did and just stayed out of it. I really should have just stayed out of it, because I know, I probably could have, just let the situation play out. But it's like, I felt like, I saw two comrades essentially going at it, and I was just kind of at that point where I'm just kind of like, look, it's like, it's like, can everybody just like calm down? And it's just, and I feel like by making any sort of statement, by inserting myself in it in any way, I was essentially at that point in a lose-lose, situation. Like, there was no, like, I was going to end up being, in a situation that was, where I was going to end up having to pick a side. And if I had just, kept my mouth shut, then, who knows, who knows how things would have turned out. But I just know that it was really frustrating.
Honestly, I think you're too hard on yourself. Like I said earlier, like, your position is different than my own. It's like, I do have a form of privilege in some ways, because I don't suffer the same issues that you have because of my position in society. So
Yeah.
I can understand it. I think you're being a little too hard on yourself. If would I have done the same thing in your situation? Perhaps, but I can't. But I don't. Again, I'm not in a situation where I have the luxury of. I can make a choice like that. Honestly, people in your position don't really have as much of a choice. It's basically a lose-lose situation, and it sucks, but that's how it is.
And when you do, and when you kind of are in that situation where you kind of feel like, you have to, stay united and surround yourself with, other trans people, specifically other trans comrades, you start, you feel you feel like more of a, you feel a moral obligation to one group than you do another. And then, when those, when those two worlds kind of butt heads, you find yourself caught in the middle, and it's just like, I don't want to be here. Like, and so and it's kind of been really hard for me, probably the last like 6 to 8 months, because of a lot of that, because I've essentially started having to come to the realization that, you know, not all trans people are, are good people. Not all trans people are on the same page, and that you're not going to be able to satisfy all those same voices, just like you're not, in general, you can't satisfy everyone. It's, the same within our own community. There's people with varying different ideological views, and people with different mindsets and things like that, and people that sometimes aren't the greatest of people. Like I've had, like I said, there's been a couple of individuals recently that I've had to cut ties with because or just stopped associating with entirely, because they actually it came out that they were abusive in different ways.
Like Couples, I think that's her name.
Well, there's Clara Sorrenti. There's also there was a issue with involving a really close personal friend of mine with another close personal friend of mine, and then there was a couple of people that I follow and talk to occasionally, and one of them basically, and I had to block one of them because another one admitted later that that individual was really like manipulative and very emotionally abusive in their and mentally abusive in their relationship, and actually almost drove that one friend of mine to suicide, and not only put them in the hospital where they were hooked up to tubes and everything, but then literally took pictures of it with the person that would later become that person's partner, and posted it online for everybody to see. Literally for this, literally for this friend to be basically in, being seen in the most vulnerable of states. But at the end of the day, those two broke up. The truth came out, and also I had to really, another big nail in the coffin for me was because of that one friend that was abusive. Later found out that they're apparently they were what I like to call a soft Zionist, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm blocking you, fuck you. So so yeah, I had to, I've just ended up having a lot of these situations over the last like several months where there's been friends and acquaintances and even comrades that I've had to essentially had to cut ties with because they weren't the people that I thought they were. And it's really, and I've got comrades that can testify to this, who have been really close to some of the action that I've been involved with lately, that I've been duped on more than one occasion this past year. And it's maybe at the end of the day, it's like, I am still kind of naive. I think, I like to pretend that I'm not, because, I like to be like, well, I'm in my 30s now, it's like I'm a lot, older and wiser than I used to be. But no, I have to sometimes I'm humbled usually every time, because I end up realizing, no, I'm still dumb as shit. I just, I'm a lot more aware of it.
When I was a new communist back in 2016 to 2019, I was mistaken to thinking that communists they cannot be as bad as the fascists. There can't be bad people or narcissistic, or boy was I wrong, because 2020 was an eye opener for me, because that's when I actually was involved with people politically, where I saw ugly side of what the communist movement could look like. Like, because not to mention communists, there's so many people that who cosplay as communists, which a lot of fascists are in these movements, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like Be Liberal, Caleb Maupin. Like, of course, Caleb Maupin, Spanky is like someone I do enjoy mocking from time to time. I don't have a personal.
Oh, I do too. I mean,
never,
obviously, I've made like 2 or 3 freaking shorts that are basically my form of like, the old YouTube poop that I've posted on, on my channel, and it's just like, it's fun. It's good to have a laugh every once in a while.
Well, it's just, and knowing there's people who may believe what I believe as well, which is the opposite, but they could be some of the most like narcissistic people that you could ever meet, and it's like it was an eye opener for me because now I'm more cautious now because if someone is a communist now, I have to see what they do in their actions rather than their words.
Yeah, I have to really, because anybody can basically say they're a communist or even more more blandly a leftist, and it's like, okay, then but what exactly do you mean by that? Because it's like, because that's a pretty bold term. So
Not to mention another thing I've learned that was an eye opener. The left has a anti-Semitism problem, and I don't think people don't want to talk about it.
yeah, it's one of those things that we typically, and I'm guilty of this too. I don't talk about it really either because I typically tend to, because then that kind of opens us up to a lot of bullshit from shit libs and other reactionaries. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, there is definitely anti-Semitism that goes on within the left. The problem is, and really, I think the big key difference is that they're very, very quiet and very, very sneaky about how they go about it. It's like, because a lot of people will be like, oh no, they're not anti-Semitic. They're just, ABC, whatever reason. And it's just but yeah, it's just one of those things where but it's like, I understand that there is anti-Semitism within the left, and but it's just that they're a lot more, they're a lot better at hiding it, whereas the right wing, the ultra right fascists, they're very blunt about their anti-Semitism.
I think anti-Semitism on the left. I don't think most leftists they're anti-Semitic intentionally. Most of them are.
Yeah.
It's just the culture that we're all raised in. We just like it's anti-Semitic in general. I'm speaking from the American context. America, you cannot look at American culture and not see some form of anti-Semitism. So those views are going to persist even if you become a communist in the Western world. Like the Western world itself is anti-Semitic. So I feel like the majority of it is subconscious. I don't think it's most people are aware of it, unlike centrists and far right fascists who are aware of their anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Because because there are leftists that speak out against it. It's just unlike fascists who just don't give a fuck because they are overtly open with their anti-Semitism. It's like there's no, you cannot prove this any further than what's going on in Israel. Like all the anti-Semites are supporting what's going on right now in Gaza. And every time a Jew who's against Israel speaks out, they act like they know more what's going on in Israel than a Jewish person who knows their own religion.
Yeah, and that's kind of brings me to something I'd like to clarify here on stream, is that I may have made mention in that video, my Aaron Bushnell video, that I was saying something about, if there was any Jewish Palestinians, and I used that term specifically because, the state of Israel, we at this point we do not recognize that. As leftists, we do not recognize them because first of all, the very concept of a state of Israel is technically if you go by the actual old texts, it's actually against Jewish law to have a formalized sovereign state. So technically, by doing so, this is a creation that it is a entity that should not exist by the nature of Jewish law. So it's one of those things where so yeah, that's so as that which is why a lot of Jewish people for Palestinian liberation do not recognize the state of Israel. Or at bare minimum, they don't um, they don't agree with the genocide, which should just in general be a basic point. But what I'm saying is that as leftists, we should not recognize the state of Israel. We should, if anything, Israelis should be more referred to as Jewish Palestinians that are engaging in hostile warfare, um, against, said state. And basically, the way that I look at it is that I may have made mention about how, if there was any Jewish Palestinians um, who are willing to speak up and speak out against the atrocities, please do so, because it almost feels like your voices are not. I said that your voices are essentially non-existent, and it's not that I'm saying that there isn't people out there that aren't speaking out about it that are Jewish Palestinians. The issue is that a lot of those voices are just silenced, and they're typically they're just not made as vocal as as we'd like them to be. And we understand that's kind of hard because, well, let's be real, the Zionist occupiers are doing whatever they can to silence those voices, because essentially those voices to to the Zionist government is are voices of treason. I also may have made mention that that we as leftists, especially in forms of protest, we need to protest by any means necessary, which includes acts of violence, acts of sabotage. And I said that that is something that Jewish Palestinians need to do as well. And I recognize that by saying that, essentially what I'm asking them to do is commit treason. But it's like an act of treason against against a fascist government, a genocidal regime, is an act of humanity. It's an act of goodwill. And as I kind of my personal motto goes, it's better to die a martyr for the cause than to die a coward in chains.
I agree, and here brings up this point: the Israel, like, it will, one way or another, Israel's is not going. It will cease to exist as a entity. But one thing I want to ask people, though, who in America, who naively think that the American government won't do the same thing to here that they've been doing, like, around the world for generations. They're naive to think they won't eventually do that. Like, when the fight comes home, what will people do?
Yeah,
it's okay. I do think that in the future, because the U.S. military, like, people have this worship of the U.S. military, and I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do think they will eventually be deployed on American soil. What's going to happen when they start firing on American citizens? Because I feel like the day the U.S. empire will officially die is when the U.S. military fires on the American people, because that's going to cause, like, the American people to lose all faith in the very institution that they once looked up to. Because the military is one thing, even if they hate the police and they hate the government, they look up to the military. What happens when the military, there's no faith in it? You'll see mutinies in that said military as well. Because let's be real, most people who serve in the military don't want to shoot their own people that they are supposedly supposed to protect.
Yeah.
that's where the civil war is going to happen. Because in most times in history, a lot of the times when when a civil war happens, a lot of it happens within the military as well. It's one of the places where a lot of the fighting happens. So that's why I'm saying people actually believe this won't be a war zone one day. You're mistaken.
And honestly, I don't think it's going to be that long because, especially with growing animosity towards this genocide, I don't think it's going to take long. Eventually, I feel like if these protests do were to grow larger, eventually they're going to do what they've done. Like for instance, with what they did in previous instances of protests. They'll start by bringing in police like they did at the Battle of Portland in 2020, and then they're going to start bringing in then they'll bring in Homeland Security if they have to, and then their last line of defense is if that doesn't work, then you end up bringing in the military, like the National Guard. And and I feel like it's probably not going to be that long. So
but I don't think the establishment wants to use the U.S. military on American soil because they depend on the U.S. military. These people supportive it, even those who are against the government. What happens when people have no faith in the military? Even
yeah, well, yeah, because essentially the U.S. empire is built on. It's essentially built on this sense of militarism. Like, a lot of people, want to say that we're not, essentially a military run country. I'm like, yeah, we're not a military dictatorship. We're not like, how, Egypt is, say, or certain other countries. But we are, a country that worships the military, as if they're essentially like, Roman legionaries. And it's just like that, and so, yeah, if we essentially break that if we break that facade, then we essentially, then the U.S. essentially has, the government really doesn't have much of a leg to stand on.
that is true.
But yeah,
it depends on the military to have legitimacy. Without the U.S. military, what do you have left? Because the American people already hate the government.
Yeah.
You can't name one country on the planet where people are as paranoid or as fearful as of their government as Americans.
Yeah. But yeah, just there's a lot of shit that's been going on. And like I said in the recently, me and Jason have both released videos on this about Aaron Bushnell, and he and I said this already in my video, and Jason I feel very he very beautifully brought it up in his own sense, where the media is doing the exact thing that I had said they were going to do. They were going to treat this guy as if he was a mentally deranged individual. Like, in fact, I believe one media outlet had already said something about how had pointed out that somebody had made mention that he was psychologically unstable or something like that. And it's like, no, I think from the videos that we've seen, the guy was in a pretty right state of mind. He knew what the fuck he was doing. And he just couldn't bear the to have that on his conscience anymore. And this was, and as I said, this is yes, it's an extreme act of nonviolent protest, but it still is, it's, if anything, is a desperate call to action, to attention of, for certain crimes that are going on. I mean, we saw it with Thich Quang Duc in in Vietnam in 1963. You know, even though she didn't immolate, she was still a martyr for her. An American, Rachel Corrie, who stood up in the early 2000s against the Israeli occupiers in Palestine, was run over, was crushed to death. And Aaron Bushnell is, you know, his story essentially combines the elements of those two people who, you know, gave their lives for a cause, for a very specific message. And it's that we cannot keep supporting fascist dictators. We cannot keep supporting genocide against ethnic minorities. And so, yeah, it's not a guy that's psychologically unstable. This is a man that was very much in his right mind, but could not take, you know, but who finally woke up and realized that, hey, this is fucked up. We can't keep doing this. So yeah, it's a really, it's sad that this is what it's come to, but this isn't probably going to be the first instance that we see of something like this. We're probably going to see this happen. We'll probably see, I hate to use the word copycat, but we're going to see copycat situations probably occur in the US and other Western countries. I honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if we don't see, you know, Jewish Palestinians doing this at some point, who, you know, just in order to get their voices across, you know, commit an act like this. It's very practical that is something that could happen. I didn't think I would see something like that in my lifetime. I certainly didn't think I'd see something like that in this country. I certainly didn't, you know, but, you know, I certainly didn't have it on my 2024 bingo list, but here we are.
Honestly, as much as I like to shit on Americans, I argue your average American has more of a conscience than your average Israeli.
Yeah.
And until I'm convinced otherwise, I think Israelis are a country of child murdering war criminals.
Yeah.
And it's like, how would you, let's say a hypothetical scenario, you were to try is like them for war crimes, there wouldn't be enough room for the fucking prisons for all these people. Like you imprison almost an entire nation. I'm asking rhetorically, it would never happen, but how would you try that many people who are complacent, who have done it?
I mean, it was something that we couldn't, that the Soviets had wanted to essentially do in Germany after World War II, and the Western powers, for various different reasons said no. And sure, yeah, it probably, especially for that time, would have been impractical. But again, it's like we're in that same exact situation now with a so-called nation of Jewish Palestinians, because essentially, they're doing the exact same things to the Palestinians that the Nazis did to the Jews. So it's like, how do you go about rehabilitating and re-educating an entire population of, 7.2 million people? So yeah, it's just like how can you manage to, how are you going to do that? It's such a massive scale that it's like you would essentially have to, the only thing that I can really think of is that you'd essentially have to, turn modern Israel, so the state of Israel, into basically one big gulag, and that's not a good look.
I'd say the children would be a good place to start because that's where the source of all this comes from.
Yeah.
Start with the. As for the adults, you do work on it from a case to case basis.
Yeah. And just kind of hope that, you can change the mindset of the next generation
I say is
because
prioritize the young. Like that's where I would do. As for everyone else, I cannot say on stream what should be done with them.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean I'm sure that what I've already said probably is controversial enough.
But no matter what, Jews are going to lose in this. They're in a lose-lose situation with because like they're going to be blamed no matter what, and that's the sad reality. It's like
Yeah.
when Israel falls, they're going to be blamed for it, and things are becoming more. The world is even more dangerous for Jews now, like than ever, because of Israel. Israel makes it dangerous to be a Jew because Jews cannot simply just rest and just simply be at peace. They constantly are on the defensive. And I feel like as long as capitalism exists, Jews will never be able to heal from the Holocaust.
Yeah.
They can never simply heal because they are not allowed to heal. They're like what happens to a victim when they're constantly like on the defensive.
Yeah.
And like the whole reason why Israel existed in the first place, why so many Jews supported it at the beginning, is because it's like the whole fucking world was hostile to them. What the hell do you expect them to do? I'm not defending what they did. I'm just putting logically the entire Western world is guilty of what the genocide of the Nazis, not just Germans.
Yeah. It's like those settlers better back up their shit and go back to Europe where they came from. I mean, yeah, I mean the whole concept of like the state of Israel was entirely pushed by the European powers. It was, and it was, it is a European creation, and that's you know.
Theodore Herzl, said the biggest anti-Semites will be our biggest friends,
Yeah.
which is true because you have literal Nazis that literally said 6 million weren't enough who support Israel. It's like, wait, I thought Jews supported the existence of Israel. If that's the case, why is it almost exclusively non-Jews that support Israel?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, it's like honestly, the whole thing with Israel is what actually took me out of my like atheism phase of my life because I saw the conflict what's going on in Israel and Palestine. I knew nothing about it at the time. I thought it was a conflict of two religions, and I was so disgusted. And I just saw the atheist community online not even talking about Palestine. Like they reduce everything to a religious conflict, which is a simplistic view of looking at the world rather than colonialism and imperialism. In fact, I would argue in general, I think the new atheist movement that arose in the 20th century was in response to try to claim atheism. Oh, not atheist. Make it to separate like atheists from like leftist thought.
Yeah.
If leftist thinkers were atheists at the time. But if you look at it now, with all these aging like people who are part of the new atheist movement, they're all fucking Zionists. And when you look at their arguments, like Richard Dawkins, I can't believe I used to read that fucking guy's garbage. They're not as intelligent as you think they are. They're so simplistic of how they actually look at the world. It's like, how can you reduce like the way things are in this world based on religion? I think that's another issue the left has, its anti-religion component, which because people they don't take into consideration of colonialism and imperialism. I'm not saying religion hasn't been used for those ends, but you can't look at history that way. I used to believe in that way, and that's a simplistic view of the world.
It really is.
And actually works in favor of the ruling class. Why did so many people support Israel until recently? It's because of that simplistic worldview. Oh, this is a conflict of two religions. But when you see people broadcasting, even like you hearing people cheering when they murder children, it's like that takes its toll on people who have a conscience. And I didn't think that there was as many people in America that had a conscience as I did until what happened with recently what's going on in Gaza. It's like, no, most people of conscience do not want to fucking see or hear about children being blown up or parents like holding their children's destroyed bodies or fathers like screaming as they grieve as they lost their entire family in a single instant. Like, you have to be a heartless monster to not actually feel for those people.
Yeah.
Like a little girl who was only 5 or 6 years old. You don't even need to understand Arabic to understand how scared she was, and the person that was talking to her as well, how they were barely able to keep things together. Like, the Palestinians are humanized, like, for the first time, and I think the ruling class, which they have a very fucked up view of the world, I believe they thought the average American were as fucked up as they were in terms of how they look at other human beings. But they've been up for a rude awakening. Yes, most Americans won't speak out, but if you talk to average working people in general, like the current place I work at, like one of the people that was in charge, she actually is supportive of Palestine, not Israel, and she's one of my bosses, which is something you would not see years ago. It goes to show you that social media was a game changer.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of for better and for worse,
I know.
but it's just like but yeah, it has at least made it easier for people to express their ideals, more vocally, again, for better or for worse. But it's just, but I think we honestly, if you kind of ignore a lot of the swill that's, does fester online, particularly on sites like Twitter, you will find that there is quite a lot of, really, you will find that there is actually quite a lot of individuals with, a sense of humanity who understand the situation that's going on. So
I think Israel's out of control, and the very fact is, I think another thing is Biden is probably the worst president that could have ever been in office at this time.
Yeah,
because I feel like if we had a more competent president, this whole thing in Gaza would have already been resolved.
Yeah.
Not saying this to praise any potential president that could have been in his place. I'm just being.
Yeah.
This is not a good look on around the world. Because, like, the world looks at America as no different from Nazi Germany. And there are people, even though they're shrinking in number, that still remember that time. And they don't see America as any different from the Nazis and Israelis. They're like, it's not a hill worth dying on. And Trump, with God, I don't even want to. He was even worse than Biden.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it doesn't really matter because with the current two-party system, well, or really the one-party, two ideologies sort of a thing. It's they are like, it doesn't matter who you get. They're gonna, it's like they would, no matter who we get, it's gonna end up being a bad situation, because at the end of the day, America really is just the evil empire.
Well, no matter who becomes president, who gets elected, and who gets sworn in 2025, Biden or Trump are going to be the last baby boomer presidents. I strongly believe that. The next one's going to be either from our generation or Gen X.
Yeah.
And I hope. Oh, and by fucking God, I'm afraid of a Gen X president. Fuck, because they're younger and more. And oh God. some
More
of the most
cocky, more entitled. Yeah.
some of the most sadistic and most malicious people and the most fascistic people come from Gen X. Not saying there aren't progressives in that generation, but they're as reactionary as the boomers, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are leading the charge of these fascist movements that have been rising in this country in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
That's why they're more dangerous. So who is it going to be? Well, it certainly won't be Moron DeSantis. He basically ruined his chance.
Well, yeah, and also kind of because he doesn't really have he talks a lot of big talk, when when it comes down to being the governor of Florida, but when it comes to standing up to Trump, or just or facing any sort of criticism and opposition, the man is a spineless coward. So
he would have been better had he waited, but he would have been more popular had he waited.
Queen Bee, Nicole for president 2028. Yeah, no, it's like I don't participate in the bourgeois democracy.
I don't either. I really don't care who wins, as George Carlin once said when he was alive, voting is meaningless.
Yeah, I think actually, yeah, some sub monkey mentioned that right there. I can't stand either party, and like George Carlin said, I don't vote, I stay at home. Yeah.
And hey, one thing I love about George Carlin, and I'll say this as well: if you vote, you have no right to complain.
Yeah, exactly. I know that that a lot of people like to like to spin that the other direction, saying it's like, well, if you don't vote, you don't have a right to bitch. No, I have a right to bitch just as much as the next person. But if you continue to participate, it's more the other way around. If you continue to vote for, continue to vote for this two-party system, or in a lot of people's case, the vote blue no matter who, yeah, you're complicit you're complicit in the bourgeois democracy continuing. You're complicit in genocidal wars continuing to be engaged. You are part of the problem. You're continuing to perpetuate a system of violence and oppression against minorities, and it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican. At the end of the day, they're all still going to be against your rights, even if they claim to be an ally of of those minority groups. That at the end of the day, they're shit libs, they're bourgeois, they're reactionary. It's reactionary garbage, and that's. So at the end of the day, yeah, you have no right to then turn around and be like, oh, well, I don't like what Biden's doing. He should be, stopping the genocide. Well, you voted for the fucking asshole. Like, you were the one that said vote blue no matter who. Most of these same people screaming about Biden not doing enough to help Gaza or help the Palestinians are the same people still out there saying it's like, yeah, but we still got to vote Biden because we don't want the Republicans getting in there. We got to vote blue no matter who. Then you're just part of the problem. You're literally complicit in genocide while supposedly condemning genocide. That is why why leftists are so pissed off at people like that.
Well, another thing too is all these rights that the LGBT community gained during the Obama years are being eroded. And it hasn't even been 10 years since gay marriage was legalized throughout the entire country. And not to mention people who are trans. It's dangerous now to be trans in America.
I mean, obviously, I will say this. It is less dangerous in certain places, specifically certain cities like Portland. It's one thing, but it's say you're walking through the middle of bumfuck Alabama, you're probably going to end up getting killed. But at the end of the day, that it doesn't really matter. We still live in a country that is still very much, antagonistic towards, the LGBT community, but very specifically towards the trans community. So yeah.
Well, and not to mention, people's like, oh, if we don't vote, if we vote for Trump, or sorry, we don't vote for Biden, the LGBT community will lose their rights and they'll be rounded up in camps. This stuff is happening under Biden, like more
Right.
than ever has under Trump.
Imagine Caleb Maupin be a brand spanking new president.
Caleb Maupin as president, I don't know if I'd be able to take him seriously. The guy is a joke.
Oh, I just thought that comment was funny.
Like when you, I watched a clip from his recently, like the way he presents himself, the way he speaks, he talks like a cult leader.
Well, he is a cult leader.
It's like, I cannot take him seriously. I just laugh when he's like, so socialism has moved beyond the left.
I agree with Logan, though. I think we should support the Mario Party.
We should support the party and run to lose. I'm not joking. I'm serious.
That would be great.
The anti-American party. We run to lose. And if we get too far into the primaries, we drop out.
Yeah. Oh shit. I guess Logan also lives in Cali. That's cool. Yo.
Yeah, but for how long though? That's the question.
Yeah.
Like, even the most safest places, how long will it be safe?
It won't. That's the thing that that me and my partner have talked about on numerous like I love the people that like when I talk to trans people and their rebuttal, because I've gotten this exact same rebuttal from a lot of people when I try to bring up like trans liberation through revolution and a lot of things, and about arming ourselves and stuff like that, and people are like, you live in fucking Portland. It's like, okay, you say that as if that somehow means something. Like, yeah, I live in a liberal city. That doesn't mean that that I still don't get stares, that I still don't, face discrimination. I just face it, I will agree, on a somewhat lesser level than certain other people, say like trans people in Texas or Florida. But the difference is that, at the end of the point that I'm trying to make is that they're going to come for all of us, no matter what, what state or city that we live in. And we have to be prepared for that. So, and also Purple makes a good point right here. Portland was once a skinhead city, during the 90s, but honestly, I would say a lot earlier than that. But yeah, there was a lot of issues that were going. Hell, I think back in the what was it, the 30s? I think 20s, 30s, maybe even as late as the 50s. I think I know that they had what they called a perpetual cross burning, because literally right at the top of the hill that I live at. So like literally not even a mile from where I live was where they would have these continuous cross burnings that were, because they had a major KKK sect up here. I believe at one point there was the what was it, I think it was the group Stormfront. I think they're based out of like the Dalles or something like that. So like Central or Eastern Oregon. But yeah, basically Oregon has had has had a lot of history with white supremacists here. And yeah.
Huntington Beach, California, and is basically where white supremacists in Orange County go. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fascist fucking town. It's like I know because I live there. It's very
Bakersfield has specifically Oildale has had a history of fascists in that. Of course, I mean, then again, most of your counties in the desert do anyway. But Bakersfield was a major hub. I believe Fresno was also.
well, close to Mesa has some fascists, but it's not as apparent. So
Yeah.
same thing with Newport Beach. So those who don't live in Orange County wouldn't know the cities I'm talking about. Um,
Yeah,
like
southern Los Angeles area,
like
basically.
Verena Park has some fascists there. Same thing with Anaheim. Like Orange County in general is probably one of the most reactionary fucking places in California
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah, I would honestly say the most reactionary are Orange County, San Bernardino County, and I would honestly even say down near down around San Diego as well, because especially with the military bases that are kind of dotted along.
Guys, California, I thought it was a communist state.
Yeah, no. In fact, a lot of people kind of, if you want to really put it into perspective, Southern California, for as much as people talk about how liberal it is because of the metropolis of Los Angeles and everything. No, Southern California probably out of the two, out of the northern and the southern parts of the state, the southern part of the state is actually far more conservative, and the northern part, is pretty broadly centrist. Like, yeah, you have
I could tell you from experience what you're saying is accurate because
yeah.
I've been to Northern California because that's where my sister lives.
Yeah, it's anybody want to travel through cities like Modesto and Stockton, and then eventually to Sacramento's pretty much known for being purple, otherwise more center right. But yeah, most of the Bay Area are shit liberals, so they're pretty centrist at most. And I'd say that probably the only area that has maybe any monicum of freaking progressives, and I use that term loosely, it would probably be Oakland, and that's about it. So
California, it's like pretty much it's a borderline right wing state, but
yeah.
those right wingers who claim that who complain about California don't actually fucking live here.
Yeah, it's the same for people up here in Oregon who, people want to claim, oh, Oregon's such a liberal state. No, Oregon's actually a pretty right wing state. It is very much, it very much is in favor of its guns. It's very much in favor of a lot more traditional conservative values. The only place that's really not, the only major pocket that's not, is Portland and maybe Eugene to a certain extent, but otherwise, most of the state is pretty firmly, right wing, and same with Washington. Washington State is very much a conservative state, with the exception of Seattle proper. Seattle proper probably is kind of like Oakland, kind of like a mixture of Oakland and San Francisco, where it has at most it's revolutionary people are assholes like Kashama Sawant, who are self-proclaimed Trotskyists. So it's one of those things where it's like, but a bourgeois Trotskyist, someone who still participates, in the bourgeois democracy. So it's like at the end of the day, it's like, no, the Pacific states, for as much as people want to talk about them being, so liberal, they're so left. No, they're not left at all. They're actually, pretty conservative for the most part, and frankly, they only get more conservative the further east into the state you go. And I can say that pretty firmly because I've been to places in Central Oregon. If you ever want a perfect example of an absolute just den of fascism, go through a little town in about, I'd say, 50, 60 miles south of Bend, Oregon. There's a town called Gilchrist. It, as soon as you enter that town, at least how it was back in during Trump's administration, when I was before I was transitioning, you would enter that town on either side, and all you would see was just a shit ton of American flags and Trump banners all throughout that, scattered throughout that town. It was a Trump, a Trump fortress basically. For it had a population of probably like 60 people, but it's like but essentially every single person in that town was a fucking fascist. Like, I did not see even one pride flag in that town. Let's put it that way. At least when you go through certain places, you'll at least, go through certain places in like California, Oregon, Washington, you'll come across at least, at least a couple, especially if you're going through a city. Not in this bumfuck little town in Central Oregon. Hell no.
Well, where I live, there's South Vietnamese flags that are being flown. That's
Oh God.
I pretty much. It's like, yeah, it's like, okay. For those of you who don't know, it's Garden Grove. Like, in Garden Grove is like,
Oh, or as I've heard it described as garbage grove. Yeah.
actually, that's what one of my employers call it. She hates it. She hates it.
Yeah.
And not too far where I live, there's under the bridge, homeless people sleep there. So that just shows you the cracks of capitalism.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how nice the neighborhood you live in. Not too far away, you have homeless people sleeping under a bridge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's also another way you can easily spot a fascist, though, is how big is your American flag? Because it's one thing if it's a small flag, like, okay, whatever, they're probably just doing it because they were raised to do it. But when you have a flag that's so fucking big, like you could see it from like a mile away, yeah, that person's likely a fascist.
Yeah, which is why I like that comment there. It's like liberals who wave the American flag, you're never going to wave it better than the reactionaries. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they're kind of both reactionaries. But the thing that I would have to say too is that it's just like, really, at the end of the day, the only difference between them is that one is blue MAGA and the other one is, just straight up red MAGA. So
well, I've seen people in California where I live, like, who have flown the blue flag of America, or black. I don't even know it. The one that's used for Blue Lives Matter.
yeah.
Like, when Trader Joe's, the one I used to work, it was pretty common to see those kind of people like shop there.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, I just, what's interesting though, in Costa Mesa, this was a few weeks ago. I wish I would have taken a photo picture of it so I could post it online. There was people that actually flew a Palestinian flag in Orange County. It's like, what the fuck? It's a huge one too. It's not some small one. It's one you can see a mile away.
There was a guy. I was me and my partner. My partner left an hour before me, and then I left. I got off work an hour later, and basically both of us had saw on the freeway there was a guy that was marching back and forth across this overpass with a flagpole and a Palestinian flag. Nothing else, just marching with the Palestinian flag, and both of us were just laughing the fuck, cracking the fuck up, because that was like, because like, you expect that in Portland, but at the same time, it's just like, it's just one of those things that, in when you've got so many people that are like fucking shit lib Zionists and shit like that. It's funny when you still see somebody that's, you know, that's doing that. I thought that was great. And I'm just kind of like, you know what? That's more power to you, dude. Like,
well, I did scream "Free Palestine" loud enough for everyone to hear because I didn't give a because I didn't expect to see a flag out in the open.
Yeah, but you didn't light yourself on fire.
Oh fuck!
I'm sorry, is that too soon?
Oh fuck! But still, it should not have had to come to that point to bring attention.
I know, and that's ultimately what I'm getting at is that is just that yes, it's a desperate, extreme act of nonviolent protest, but when essentially the media and our leaders and, you know, and I will even say to a greater extent, the greater population of the U.S. and the Western world, like when people aren't when people aren't seemingly paying attention or aren't caring as much as they should be about, you know, something like this, you know, people resort to, you know, extraordinary means to do that. That's why, you know, Thich Quang Duc did that in Vietnam in 1963 because he was protesting in a desperate plea for people to pay attention to what was going on in Vietnam and what their governments were supporting. The sad part is that, you know, while admirable as it is that for what Aaron Bushnell did, and as tragic as it is, it's something that, you know, is that that's not somebody doing that in the country where the actual genocide and oppression is taking place. And sadly, I think it's practical that there could be a Jewish Palestinian that could do that, but at right now it's just really sad that wasn't who it was that did that, because I think it would have been more, I feel like it would have probably been at least as impactful, if not more so, if it had been an actual, you know, Jewish Palestinian that had committed that act in front of, say, the capital in Jerusalem. Like, I feel like that, you know, or in Tel Aviv or something like that. I feel like it, you know, that would have made even more of an impact and would have probably garnered a lot of, you know, just as much media attention. But, you know,
But
but
selected though of an IDF soldier having a conscience, because I don't feel like it's likely.
exactly. That was actually something that I think I did mention actually in the video too, was that why couldn't this have been like an IDF soldier doing this? But I also mentioned, like, it also goes to show that, you know, the IDF, they're soulless. They don't have a single compassionate, you know, humanitarian bone in their body. They're just, you know,
The very few ones that do are those that don't live in Israel.
yeah.
The former IDF members who don't live in Israel. It's like having a conscience is not an Israeli value. It's not. Like, what's really depressing about this whole thing is, I said it in my video last night, how many people have to die for this to stop? How many holy sites have to be destroyed? How much history has to be completely obliterated for action to be taken?
Yeah.
There are like thousands of years of history that's completely gone.
Yeah.
Family stories that are gone. It's like, how much do we have to lose? It's a tragedy. Stories that families had that they had that lasted generations, they can no longer pass those stories to people, so people would know what their ancestors have done, what they did. We don't have those anymore. It's gone.
Yeah.
That's the tragedy about what's going on, like, right in Palestine. The true tragedy is how much history will be destroyed by the time it's over. Like, you're never going to get that back.
Exactly. I had to apparently change this up a bit because Logan was saying, oh, wrong one. Sub Monkey was basically saying the idea for a fascist military group. And what I was trying to say was because I have it here as Waffen SS, but it's Israel. What I was actually trying to say was Waffen SS, but make it Zionist. But apparently, that wouldn't post because it says YouTube rejected your comment. This usually means that they think it's spam. Try changing it a bit. No, it's because I used the term Waffen SS and Zionist in the same sentence, and because this is obviously posting to my YouTube channel. YouTube doesn't like that, so they're essentially rejecting my comment.
Of course.
Of fucking course, just
yeah. You could basically talk about killing, like supporting the murder of children, but you cannot type something like that. Yeah,
but you can't say Waffen SS, but make it Zionist. Yeah, apparently you can't say that. You can't. So yeah, we'll see if that if me saying that aloud on stream is going to get this stream like taken down on YouTube or something.
That didn't shock me.
Me neither.
It's like,
but yeah.
I have not been on Twitter for almost 2 years.
Count yourself lucky. I for me it's a disease, and it's one of those things where it's like, I know that I'm not doing myself any favors, and I'm just kind of perpetuating it by sticking around on it, but it's kind of like my main source of promotion, essentially. So but yeah, it's just
I could thank J.K. Rowling for reason why I got banned.
I last year I ended up getting a week suspension because I think I quote retweeted her or something like that, or something about some vile shit she probably posted, and I basically just said that I may either quote retweeted her or tagged her or whatever, but I said that basically J.K. Rowling is a whiny little cunt, and I got a week suspension for that.
I called her a narcissistic bitch.
Yeah.
And a sociopath because she was celebrating the shutting down of a hospital that helps children.
Yeah.
So I was beyond disgusted with her.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be disgusted in J.K. Rowling, but from the fact that she lives in Scotland but doesn't want Scotland to be an independent country, to the fact that she is an ardent TERF who does who lobbies and donates to causes to essentially that contribute to anti-trans legislation in the UK, and
not to mention she's friendly with literal Nazis.
Yeah, and then the fact that she's literal friends with not just like, and we're not talking about just like hush hush, Nazis where they're like, very, where they're, very conniving about, they're very quiet about it. No, we're talking about people that are blatantly, openly like fascist, like white, like espouse white supremacy. And people like, I believe that there's a couple of people that I think one of the people that she actually was associated with at one time was what was that guy's name? He was the leader of UKIP, I think, for a while. Farage, Nigel Farage. I'm pretty sure she's like acquainted with him in some degree. So it's just, yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna kind of wind this down to basically say that I'm really glad that, you know, I was able to have you on stream and that we were able to have a nice conversation and share some laughs and stuff like that, and just kind of like old times, because that's kind of the whole point of this stream. And essentially moving forward, it's part of what I want to see with the Red Pagan Network, where not just my channel, but, you know, but Dark Sinovia, Net, Jason, Comrade Weisfeld, you know, I'm hoping to, you know, have a lot more people be part of this and provide, you know, their input, their entertainment, you know, different things like that to this network, and form a very cohesive network that I know and feel like MRN was trying to do, and that I want to essentially continue to try to build up. So it's one of those things where I think we can do it. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of coordination, a lot of communication. But I think now that we have, I think that we have all now, I think we've reached a point where that is something that we can do. And, you know, I'm not like expecting people to like put out videos every week or whatever like that. It's kind of more like whatever they can contribute, cool. Because at the end of the day, I'm still going to continue posting my bullshit. But I want to still be able to, you know, platform other people, because the point of the Red Pagan Network is not to be an echo chamber. It's not to just have one specific philosophy or one specific form of like Marxism. It's gonna, you know, I want to be able to have a collective of different voices and ideas circulating on here. So like demarchists, to have MLs, Maoist Third Worldists, just, you know, anarchists. You know, I want to have different people contributing onto this channel, and not just me. Like obviously I've been the face of Red Pagan Corner, and I'm going to continue to be the face of Red Pagan Network. But at the end of the day, it's like I want this to kind of be a fun place where everybody can contribute and feel welcome. And I'm really happy that I was able to have Dark Sinovia on here, and just kind of just shoot the shit like old times. And I hope that we can continue to see more of that in the future.
I agree. I want to move past this drama that's
I am
happening.
so tired of the drama. I am just so tired of it. I've been going through so much of it on here and in my personal life, and to the point where I was even telling my one of my best buddies and my partner last night that I'm 32 years old, and I thought I left the drama in high school. But somehow drama continues to follow me even long into my 30s, and it's just, you know, like I'm tired of it, man. In the words of Michael Clark Duncan from Green Mile, I'm tired, boss.
Jeez, I'm 35, and I thought, I feel old. I'm not gonna lie at times.
Yeah, and then try being and then yeah, it's like you, me, Net, Jason, all of us that are in like our 30s and 40s, and it's like we're still dealing with the petty drama, and it's just I'm tired of it. I'm at this point, it's like I'm doing my best to just try to avoid it.
I think Gen Z and Gen Alpha will save the world. At least that's where I stand. I don't trust my generation to make things better. I don't.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dark, for being on, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm Red Pagan Nicole, and this has been a very special live stream of Red Pagan Corner. Until next time.
Until next time.